Welcome to Build It Live. Usually webinars are just talking about code, but today we're shipping it. And to do so, we polled you, the audience, on exactly what we should build. Drumroll please. The winner was the petty expense tracker, because apparently we all have that one friend who owes us $4 for coffee. And today we're going to build the app that tracks him down like the paperboy from Better Off Dead, for all you John Cusack fans. I'm joined by Val Scarlata, our AI curriculum lead, who's going to drive the build using a workflow we call Agentic Engineering, and Sergei Kozyrenko, principal engineer at SoFi, who's joining us to share his perspective on building with agents at scale. Val, you've been living in Claude Code for the last year, building our curriculum, helping launch that vibe coding or vibe engineering course. You've mentioned that your background in teaching actually helps you prompt better. Is that what we're seeing today? You teaching the model how to be a junior dev?
Yeah, I actually think that it's a lot like working with students where you have like a really bright, amazing student and you just really need to watch what they're doing and keep them on track because you feel like they're so capable and you can kind of get really confident, but suddenly they're doing the wrong thing and oh no, you have to remember that they need a lot of steering and guidance. So yes, I feel like I'm, constantly trying to collaborate with a extremely bright student.
A very eager, sometimes confidently wrong student. Uh, Excellent. And Sergey, great to have you as well. Thank you so much for joining us. You're dealing with high stakes engineering every day. I'm super excited to hear your take on Val's workflow and how it compares to what you're seeing in the industry and in some of your personal projects.
Definitely.
Fantastic. So, Val, before we jump into our build, and I know we're going to want to spend as much time as possible in the CLI building our agents today and our application, let's start with some definitions. We talk a lot about vibe engineering in our new course, but today we're going to go through a specific workflow called agentic engineering. Can you talk us a little bit through the difference and maybe vibe coding, which many have probably heard from, versus vibe engineering and agentic engineering?
Yeah, I think when I started doing this, I was vibe coding. I very much would use like chat and I would be like copying and pasting code in like very particularly. I always watched all of the code. I was always like, what did you write? What's going on here? And now I actually don't really want to look at the code. Sergey and I have some differing opinions on should you read the code? Should you be touching it? And now we're going to set up like an agent team to build things. So what I want to focus on in my workflows is building the specifications, the requirements, the documentation that the agents need to realize my vision here and have the end product be, what I wanted it to be. So we want to focus on using agent teams to kind of build a lot of things very quickly. And I think old vibe coding world, it would take me a very long time to just vibe code an app. And you're constantly, debugging and trying to figure out what to do next and how to manage context. But I think this is more of like very clear context management and, really leveraging different models and agent teams.
Absolutely. I think, a year ago when we first heard about vibe coding, there was, a lot of happy pathing and blindly trusting the output, a little bit of guess and, or, the other aspect was guess and check. So say yes, and then, like you said, moderate what goes through it. In our last webinar, we had Bruce Cantorum, the author of Vibe Engineering, join us. And he talked us through, as you said, a lot of those software engineering principles, applying test-driven development, applying those workflows to make sure that we're setting those up for success. And with agent engineering, I'm super excited to see how you're architecting an agent that is actually instructing those sub agents and those additional sessions that we're doing to get to work. Before we dive into the CLI, and Val, we'll have you pull that up in just a second. Sergey, anything super interesting in your experience with agents or your progression from coding to engineering to agentic engineering that you've learned along the way?
Mostly you can get most of your job now done fully with agents, and I don't think that people will be coding much for longer. And you still need oversight, I think, but we can get more in details on that later. But yeah, I'm very excited and where the industry is going because it completely changes how we do software development.
Yeah, it seems like every week there's a you know a major leap in advancement. Just in the last couple of weeks, we saw the latest codex rollout as well as Claude 4.6. Speaking of that, let's talk a little bit about our stack for today. So we're going to use Claude Code CLI. We're going to be building our petty expense tracker with React for the front end and deploying that to a simple Google Cloud project. Val, with that, should we pull up and get started?
Yeah, I just wanted to review what you just said, Joe. This is the app we're building that was voted on. This is going to be kind of my little recipe that I'm going to go through and give to you, give to everyone watching as a gift to try this. Um, so we're building a job, like in here we have specified it's JS React. This might not be the case, right? Like you might go into a design session and say, I just want to build this thing, and you're not really specifying these things yet. So this could be part of brainstorming, or you could come in with a very succinct statement like you want to build a JS React app. We want to build it with vibe principles. I'm not sure what vibe principles are, but let's go with it. And here's the vibe. It's specifically for tracking money people owe you for small annoying things. And then it requires a UI, a small state machine. I'm not sure why we put small state machine, but we're going to see. This is some architectural decisions we're already putting in this little statement. And basic CRUD. CRUD, for anyone who doesn't know, is create, read, update, delete. So this is kind of your database or your I/O, your data I/O operations that you usually have in most apps. We're going to focus the vibe on the UX. So I've done a couple crazy experiments here, and I'm going to show you some crazy UX, and then maybe some more like expected or normal UX.
Fantastic. So right now we're sort of architecting the intent, right? As the manager, you're showing us that high level prompt that's helping us define the system architecture. First, we're starting with just the intent up top. Is this a template that you're using for all of your builds? Is this sort of a shortcut that you've learned along the way to start in a Google Doc or a simple template here
This
to
is my
get going?
workflow. This is my workflow right now. So, this workflow might change. It definitely was not my workflow in the past. So, first thing I'm going to do is brainstorm, like ideally, or, most likely with AI. I could see like, manual brainstorming, like, start drawing things, start just writing requirements, descriptions. I like writing user stories. So a
Hmm.
lot of times I'll start writing some user stories and then be like, help me finish these user stories. So I think there's just a bunch of you can use like some software engineering design methods like event storming. You can like really kind of choose all the brainstorming tools you want, and then you're trying to get to like a specification. Like at the end of this brainstorming, I want to come out with a document, a specification, a set of requirements, descriptions that you can now give to an agent team, come up with an implementation plan, and then build it. So this brainstorm with AI part, we're not going to do here live. Like I've kind of already done that part. And we'll start from, I'll show you the brainstorm, and we're going to start with create an implementation plan and go from there. So Joe, do you want me to keep going on this one right now, or?
Yeah, let's keep going into it. I just want to call out one quick thing that you mentioned there, which is to iterate and ideate in the way that works best for you. So whether that's brainstorming with the AI, maybe if you're working solo, you mentioned drawing out some sketches. I've seen some great first steps here where if you're in a room together doing that whiteboarding, models are getting so good that even just screenshotting or taking a picture of that, or if you're doing a Fig Jam, if you're in Figma, doing that, even recording audio sessions of a brainstorming session and then summarizing those outputs, all really efficient and effective ways that I've seen people using AI lately to get to that first step, which is what we're seeing here, which is the spec as code, right?
Yeah, so I'm showing my brainstorming sessions. This was with Claude AI. I like to do the brainstorming on the chat. I think it's very hard to do the brainstorming in the CLI. And then I like to brainstorm with different models. So I brainstormed this with Gemini, and I got very different architectural recommendations and specifications and ideas. So you might want to try using multiple models to see what how you can flesh out an idea with different models, because another model might give you a better idea, or you what it comes up with. So it's really interesting doing that compare contrast.
Are you noticing significant differences in the way those models are still responding to prompts? A year and a half ago, I felt like it was very important to adapt to the prompting frameworks or the preferences of various different models. And it seems like that's becoming decreasingly important in that they're doing a good job. But the fact that you're getting very different recommendations, is that just a result of their training or the way in which they're responding to your prompts, or a little bit of everything?
Yeah, I think all these models are RL differently. They're trained differently. Their goals, their constitutions. Now they all have different constitution. So I know Claude Code, builds itself and writes itself. So when we go into projects, we think, oh, what is Claude Code good at? And with Codex or with Gemini CLI, these other tools, they might be better at something else. So if I wanted to build an ADK project, I might be I'm going to do that in the Gemini CLI, because I'm pretty sure the Gemini CLI would know how to create ADK projects, right? So
Yeah.
you might even be choosing based on, what you think that model is optimized for. And always do brainstorming with the best model in terms of I'm going to do my brainstorming with Opus 4.6 here.
Absolutely. I'm excited to see how we start to optimize the tokenization and consumption with the various different models as we get into the build here. Before we jump into this real quick, uh, Sergey, you had mentioned that maybe the end of coding for the average developer might be near in the near future here. Um, are we then spending more time on design docs than coding? And tell me a little bit about that workflow from your perspective.
Yeah, so right now, if you know what you want to build and you can break down what you want to build in a set of tasks for agent to take, you can generate pretty much any software that you want. And I think majority of big labs already have examples where saying that most of their developers are not actually coding; they're mostly creating these documents, the design docs and specs for their agents to write, and then they figure out whether the code is good, and they doing it either themselves or more and more people doing this also via an LLM judge, or even the review of the code is also automated. So definitely we see that with the right setup, you can fully automate this development. And what's going to matter more and more is actually knowing what you want to build and why you want to build it and who is it for, and how you correctly capturing what your users want to do versus just minutia of building it.
Absolutely. It's auditing with intent, which brings me up to, one worry that I have when the tools start to get this powerful. How do we not just fall asleep at the wheel and continue to lose them responsibly without forgetting how to code, right? If you're constantly just auditing, how do you stay sharp on uh, making sure you're understanding what the code is writing, and that you are not just hitting auto accept all the way through, and that we're not getting a bunch of spaghetti code?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to matter that much whether we forget how to code or not, because in today's world, it doesn't really matter that you know how to add numbers, add huge numbers and multiply them. We have calculators, we have computers that do that. But what will matter is knowing whether your agents are building the right thing overall. So, for example, I'll give you this example for medicine. For example, let's say you have a patient and you fully automated robot, and the patient comes in and they need to have their appendix removed. But if you're not careful with that agent, the agent can remove not the appendix, they can remove, let's say, a gallbladder. It's kind of in the same vicinity, and the patient cannot walk afterwards. And you would ask your AI surgeon, well, the patient should definitely walk. Like, that's not something that should happen after the surgery. Yeah, we'll say, well, you didn't really tell me that we have to let the patient walk after the surgery. You just wanted me to remove the appendix, so I did very quickly, and now they cannot walk. So while it's easy to build the software and it's easy to even verify that you've built something correctly, it's a lot harder to understand how your software might evolve after you build it. Because if you completely don't understand the code, and you're not really going to understand what kind of bugs or issues you might encounter unless you know how to test it well and make sure that everything's working as expected. So there's still, you can very easily build things that seem like they work, but it takes a lot more to make sure that you're building something that would work in production 24/7. And that's where we still need developers who know what they're doing.
That's a great segue. Thank you, Sergey. Val, should we dive into the terminal and take a look at this? I know one of the things we wanted to try to do was a zero shot comparison. Maybe we start by kicking off that main build, and then we can create a straw man here for what happens when you don't apply these principles to your build.
Yeah, so I'm going to show you the we're at the creating an implementation plan phase here, and I'm going to show you how I've input the description of the app, and the design document specification is in a markdown file. And then I'm going to show you how I asked what is the plan to build this app. So here's my giant session where I've input the description of the app, my requirements, my specification. I also have that as a file in this directory. And then at the end, after I put all that in, I say, what is the plan to build this app? And now we're making the implementation plan in this session. And I want to get that implementation plan created in this session. Like, context management becomes very important here, and you want to make sure you can get these big chunks of work done in like fresh context windows or in single context windows. So we can go back and I'll show you how I built up this implementation plan. And at the end of it, I say, now that we have all of our files written that we need for the implementation, you can see it has all these tasks that it wrote all these files. It tells me what it built to do this implementation. And then it says, here's the prompt. I asked for the prompt. What's the prompt to kick it off in a new session? I don't want to keep using this session because I'll run out of context. So now
Hmm.
I want a prompt that I can start with an orchestrator. And it'll tell
Hmm.
me, copy paste this into a fresh Claude code session. And I'm going to copy it. I'm going to start a new session. I'm going to make sure to check my model, that my model is Opus for this. I want my orchestrator to be Opus 4.6, or like the best model you have available. And I want this fresh context window. And I'm going to paste in this prompt, and we're going to begin. And then we're going to kind of like wait. If we watched my screen here, and we can leave my screen up, we're going to see it like ask if it can do things, like if it can edit things, if it can run things. These are choices. Like, you don't need to, you can YOLO mode, right? But I kind of like to see what it's doing. Like, I can see what it's doing in its little bash commands and everything. Sergey probably operates differently, and he doesn't have a lot of permissions or doesn't want these interruptions to the builds. So like, these are also some preferences that you can choose while you're doing this. I think definitely for the first like 10, 20 times you're doing things. We have one here. They added these little nice windows. This is the VS Code extension for Claude Code. And I'm going to say this is for all projects. Allow the npm install. It's going to start asking me for permissions to do to build these pieces. And I think we can see it kicked off an agent. a bunch of agents. So it's doing phase 1 with Haiku model. And yeah, let's do this.
Fantastic. So just to quickly
Yes.
recap, we took the design document that we were looking at previously. We fed that in as the initial prompt, and then we entered plan mode using Opus 4.6 because it's the most sophisticated model for that complex reasoning. That developed a comprehensive plan for how we would execute your proposed project. Did you? I know we did a little of this before we jumped on. Did you make any amendments to that, or did you trust that based on the specification you had already given it? That plan was going to be what we are going to run with today.
I did a couple of experiments, but like I don't think I can help but actually read these the specification documents, and like I
Mm-hmm.
deleted some stuff, right? So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes like for this app in particular, I said um I wanted to use audio input. I didn't want to type.
Mm-hmm.
And that got me like a lot of different weird stuff. And I started seeing like weird outputs in the specifications. And I'm like, maybe we don't want to do this. Like some of the specifications were to bring an LLM in. And now, oh, because you want to use voice, you're going to
Mm-hmm.
be, you're going to be needing an API key for an LLM, right? And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
no, I do not. So you really have to keep tabs on the specifications. Like you can use the models to write these things for you, but then you need to
Mm-hmm.
go back and heavily edit them. And I don't know if you didn't understand like software engineering stuff, like how you would be able to read and edit that. I think even when I look at what Gemini is suggesting, and it's like, you need to use this database, you need to use Twilio API, you need to, like use all these third-party APIs, right? Like that's a lot of, do I want the app to do that? Like, is that the scale I want? Like, what are my use cases here? Is this app just for me? Is this like a production thing I'm going to be like selling or something, right? So you're
Mm-hmm.
going to get wildly different specifications because I wasn't specific when I was brainstorming, right? If I said specifically this
Yeah.
is what I want, then I wouldn't have that variation. But because I am brainstorming, what it suggests or its ideas are going to be wildly variable, and I have to rein in that specification. I have to read it.
Yes, sir. Absolutely, Sergey. I think to your point, it, you might not need to know how to code, but if you don't understand the implications of removing the gallbladder and the person can't walk, in your previous one, then you're in a bit of hot water. I think Val, you're saying something similar here. Whereas if you don't understand the implications of all these new things that are being chucked into this body that is your application, you're either creating a whole bunch of bloat that doesn't need to be in there and it's going to be a train wreck to manage later on, or you might be missing critical components, right? So even though it might run on the surface, if your intent isn't clearly stated here, um, it's not going to operate as intended. Uh, Sergey, do you have a similar experience here in terms of how you are editing and refining the implementation plan, or are you letting it run, rolling the dice?
No, so in general, there's a lot of different ways that you can implement any application, usually probably hundreds of different ways. And so the job of engineer right now is to primarily, I don't necessarily look as much at the code as I look at the specs that it creates and the plans that it creates and the tests that we're gonna run to verify that everything is working as expected. Because once we more or less understand the spec and we know that it knows what to build, knows why it's building it, and we have an overall architecture, then I more or less now trust the model to build the smaller parts of the applications on its own, as long as we have a good suite of unit tests and integration tests that tell me that, yes, this application actually does what I want it to do. And I can keep running those, or the model itself keeps running those verification tests and keeps verifying that it's on the right track. Sometimes it might completely go off track and ignore all your architecture that we've spent a lot of time figuring out, but that's becoming more rare and rare with these newer models. So primarily, again, if you got the right plan, the right spec, the right architecture, the right tests, you're going to build what you intend to build, but you still have to know somehow that this architecture you're building is the right architecture.
Yeah, absolutely. So critical. I want to rewind back for just a second, Val, to something you had said as we were kicking all these jobs off. Context. And context management, context engineering is so critical in any of the builds we're doing today. Can you start out, either Val or Sergey? Val, it looks like you might be working away here. Uh, is First, what is context
I
management
want
for
to
any viewers
call
who might
out
not be
that
familiar?
this went completely off the rails at some point because it deleted Claude.md and it deleted the plan.md and then it
Oh,
tried
great.
to like rescue it from trash and now it's like rewriting them. I'm like, what are you doing?
Fantastic. So those are two markdown files, right? Maybe this is a good opportunity to talk about why those two things are super critical. Claude.md. Sergey, can you give us the 30,000 foot view on why that and plan.md are vital for this build?
Yeah, so Claude.md is something that Claude Code reads when it starts up in a folder, and you can also have a hierarchical structure where it will read the Claude.md from your folder. It can read Claude.md from your home directory, and if you have subfolders in the project, it'll read those as well. But it basically just tells Claude right away what are you doing with this project, because every time you start Claude, it typically doesn't know anything about the world apart what Anthropic told it. So Claude.md is your way to tell Claude, like, we're working on this React project, and this is what it's doing, and this is how we've set it up, and this is what the overall architecture is. So Claude doesn't have to try to figure out all of those things on its own. And if it can, of course, figure them out, but sometimes it can go a bit off, and bad things will start accumulating because this is not a deterministic system. So once you have a little bit of error somewhere, it will start accumulates and accumulates and accumulates, and next thing you know, it starts deleting some files randomly. So it's your perfect way to start up Claude with something that, well, first of all, makes sense to you, and also lays out kind of the lay of the land about what we're going to do here and why and how.
So yeah, I think we could probably rewatch this and see where it deleted it. And I saw this file go red, and that's where it deleted it for some reason. And that's like new. I have not had that happen yet. So that's the live vibe build.
Yeah, I haven't
Files
really
get
seen it
deleted.
delete Claude and Z before, unless like I specifically tell it to delete it. That's a rare one.
Yeah, totally. I'm gonna go ahead and show some more different implementation plans, um, and so like how this can break out. So this one was fairly normal, and it kind of wrote everything to Claude.md. It wrote the whole implementation plan to Claude.md. It wrote these phases in here. It stopped like going back and checking off that these phases were done, but it did build this app, and I followed the same recipe. I'll show you the implementation plan for the one that went off the rails. So the implementation plan here was to, I said, build a plan, and it said, here's the plan, here's the phases. It said, this is what's in all of these phases. And the thing it's going to start doing is as soon as it's done listing these phases, it'll hit this right here and it'll say, okay, I made the plan. Can I build it? I'm going to build it now. I want to build it. And you have to be like, no, do not build it. And multiple times it will want to just start building this for you. Like you're not even done planning and it just like, want me to start build it? Like you'll be in the chat and it'll be like, I'm going to build this now for you. It has no idea like how long or if it could actually do that. It has a goal to build this for you. So it's going to keep trying to do that. And you have to stop it. So I'll interrupt it and say, no, keep planning. And I said, we want to build this app with an agent team. What model should work with which phase? can any of these phases be done in parallel? So it'll spawn up, multiple agents at the same time and start building. And then I want to know how we can manage the context.
Hmm.
I'm going to go back to this. We have like a permission thing.
And that's a great pause point. I just saw that pop up again. For those who are just joining us, we're currently in Visual Studio Code. We're using Claude Code extension in the CLI. We're in planning mode with Opus 4.6. And Val, you hit on context again. We're talking about spinning up those different windows. We talked about Claude MD. It's all about managing the context, right? Whenever a new model comes out, we hear about what that is. Uh, Talk to me a little bit more about that. So. Uh, Previously, I believe Claude was somewhere around 250. With this latest 4.6, it's now up to 1 million tokens. How is that affecting your build? Why are we doing all these parallel windows? Why is Claude MD so important to our context management? And what happens if we don't manage context?
So I don't think the million tokens are here. Like they're definitely
Hmm.
not in the VS Code here. The extension here. Um,
Hmm.
I will run like Claude has commands, like it has a /context command, and it'll show you how much context you're using. And then when you
Hmm.
start getting, I think it's around 50%, it'll show up down here, like a
Hmm.
little pie chart with how much context you have left. Once that context runs out, whatever happens after that, it'll be like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, what are
Hmm.
we doing here? It's like you're talking to a person that just forgot. It's like the
Hmm.
movie, the amnesia movie, the I forget what it's called, but it's like that over and over again. Like you have this
Hmm.
context window, you want to achieve as much as you can, and like you want to set up your whatever you're trying to do to be
Yeah.
like done in one context window.
I think you're referring to Memento, and I think that's the
Memento,
perfect
yes, yes.
example for us because Claude or any coding model that hits its limit will leave little post-it notes for itself. It likes to smoosh and then make a summary of what it did, and then try to work off of that summary, and you end up with you know three summaries in of what the original intent was if you don't have that Claude MD file. But when you do set that intention, when you have a good strong plan in place and a good Claude MD file that defines all of those things, it goes back and rereads that first, right? Uh,
Yeah, you're setting up like every agent that spins up will have a fresh context window. It's going to read these files and what agents did before it into its context. And then your
mhm,
context is primed. And you want to get
mhm,
whatever the agent needs to be to build done within that context window. So in the end, you're going to
mhm,
have multiple context windows going, and you're kind of trusting, like by doing this implementation plan, by me implicitly trusting that these phases can be done, like this phase can be done by Haiku in that one context window. Like I'm either trusting that, or I'm going to say I don't think we can get the data layer done in one with one agent in one context window. We should break that up into another phase, right? Each
mhm,
of these phases is going to kind of represent a context window, and you
mhm,
really have to have some kind of judgment or be looking at what's in all of those phases to see if that's like too big or too small. Like, is it really achievable? Sometimes like this Haiku model, like it'll finish it, and it'll maybe start taking shortcuts to finish it at the end. And so it
mhm,
won't actually do everything in that implementation phase. It'll do most of
mhm,
it and be like, it's working. So
mhm.
I'm done here, and you'd have to actually go back and keep adding in this kind of build one feature, build one thing, do one thing in this one context window kind of fashion, while keeping
Mhm.
context of the entire project, like Sergey was talking about.
Absolutely. And so, what's the benefit for choosing a haiku for some? It inferences very fast. It is very cheap to use, right? Um what's the rhyme or reason to splitting all these up into the concurrent windows versus building sequentially, or Opus 4.6ing everything here?
Well, Opus 4.6 is going to be slow, so it's going to take
Hmm.
longer. And I'm not going to have enough Opus 4.6 quota to get through this
Hmm.
whole project And if all those agents tried to use it, I would just use up all of my Opus tokens immediately and we wouldn't be able to do this. So there's also like a lot of efficiency. Like it's just not necessary to use Opus to write a lot of like boilerplate code or a lot of code that's like very repetitive among
Mhm.
projects. So you'll see like it kind of does make these calls where it said, it wants to use Opus for this voice and snark phase where it's actually going to build like an entire like NLP kind of system in here because I said I didn't want to use an external LLM API. So
Mhm.
it's going to be trying to do all of the words in the interface dynamically, and it's going to build an entire system for this, and it thinks it needs Opus to do that part.
Yep. And NLP, natural language processing, for those at home, is what you're referring to there. Fantastic.
So we've
Well,
gone
where
through a
where do we
lot of
stand?
to-dos here. We've gone through a lot of to-dos. We've somehow recovered from, we have a new build plan.md after it
Mhm.
deleted plan.md. So I'll go back and I'll start showing how some of these other apps, how the implementation plan went for them. We're on phase 2, agent completed. And sometimes you think, oh, this is going very slow, and then it'll like speed up, and then suddenly like a lot of stuff is done very quickly. And there's really no way to know
Mhm.
how long it's going to be, but you'll always think it'll take longer than it actually does when you're using these agent teams,
Mhm.
right? These parallel agents. It's on
Yeah.
phase 3. It's already done a bunch of stuff here. So we'll go back and we
Mhm.
were looking at this one. This one was very simple. The implementation plan was all in this Claude MD. And I'll show you the app we got when this one built in about, I want to say 30 to 40 minutes. So we'll go ahead and check this out.
And so right now you have this stored locally, and you're able to just generate in a local window and see what the progress is by just testing the application directly, correct?
Yeah, at the end of the build, it'll say, "Oh, all tests passed. I'm done. Run npm
Mhm.
dev to or npm run dev to start the app, right?" And that will start the Vite server on localhost here, and I just have to open up
Mhm.
this. Right, I did npm run dev. So, like a lot of people think maybe you need to know these parts, but
Mhm.
if now these like especially the Opus 4.6 is very self-aware. Like if you're
Mhm.
struggling with what to do next or how to do this, just ask it. Like how do I
Mhm.
test this app? How do I see it in my browser? Like how do I run this? How do I open a
Yeah.
terminal window? Like it'll literally walk you through whatever you want to do. You don't have to struggle and think, "Oh, I need to know that part" or anything. You can just keep asking it.
And there's two paths there, right? If you've ever had it get a little snarky or know-it-all-y with you and say, "Well, here's how you do it," you can sort of guide it to either just create the output for you, right? You can say, just do this in natural language and it'll run it for you. Or what I like to do is if I do get stuck, show me how to do it, right? As a supplement to what we're learning here. Show me what you're doing. Explain to me what you're doing. You will see the code fly by on the screen, right? But it's nice that it can sort of give you a little additional uh, context for how it's going about it so that you do have a better awareness for next time. Um, if you're nosy and want to learn about things like I do.
So yeah,
Excellent.
this one added this like dark mode. I think I said something like I want the interface to be like slick
Hmm.
and cool, right? And like this is what it thinks is slick and cool. Um and it did achieve like the voice input here. It uses the web speech API. So this is
Hmm.
a thing where I would put in the specification of I want to use voice and then kind of track what it thinks that means. And I really have to control that specification of what this means because I'll show you when you don't control the specification what you
Hmm.
get. So this app was pretty cute. Like I said, this was the same kind of app idea to brainstorming to implementation plan. It did the implementation plan in Claude MD and these phases. It used all the parallel and the sequential agents, the agent team to execute. Took about 30 to 40 minutes. So I'm going to pull up another one where I was very loose with the specifications and it turned out bizarro.
Can you talk to us a little bit more about that parallel and sequential agents, and how they are collaborating with each other? So we saw when you kicked off that implementation, you grabbed the recommendation from the implementation plan to open new session windows. How are they communicating with each other? Are the sub agents collaborating with each other? Is it going into a primary markdown file? Is the orchestrator agent adapting and guiding them on the fly?
Sergey, do you want to take this one and I'll queue up this app?
Yeah, sure. So it really depends on how you've set up your agents. So a typical pattern that, let's say, happens with agent teams is that typically there's an orchestrator and it writes down a bunch of markdown files for what needs to be done, and then it spins off different types of agents that work on specific simple tasks, and then they all report back, and the orchestrator kind of knows what's going on, and it can go and fix some implementation, or maybe schedule something new, or just say, oh yeah, we've done with everything's working.
Mhm.
But the main means right now of communicating is either communicating through the Claude code session or again through a bunch of MD files. So as you start doing more and more of this, it's uncommon to suddenly start drowning in SMD files if you're also not good at cleaning them up quickly. As you can see, Val there already has, like 8, 10 MD files that we've created, and this is just a beginning of this app. Imagine if we're gonna start changing it over time and maintaining it and having new request comes in and bug fixes. If you don't figure out what to do with all the SMD files, suddenly you have 20, 30, 50 files. And then it also becomes harder to work with the agent because it might read in some of the old files that are no longer relevant, poison your context, and you're going to have a lot of problems. So long story short, manage your context.
Does that become more of your job, sort of actively auditing these MDs, reading through what has been generated, consolidating, auditing, or do you have any tips and tricks for uh, doing code reviews or content reviews?
Yeah, so one is obviously I can just keep trying to read all of it myself, but if another way is, of course, to just get one of these models to look through all the files, see where we are in development, if we are keeping track of where we are actually, and then it can automatically say, oh, like this is all like specs for building this. 6 months ago, we can just remove them or archive them somewhere.
Mhm.
So it definitely helps when the whole code base is also in source control, and you can easily get rid of some files and not worry that, oh, I got rid of something that I need to bring back.
Mhm. And this is a really critical part of the build as well, right? Because when you have a number of phase MD files that are all, driving towards the same uh, build conclusion, but were developed at different parts and stages, they might collaborate or corroborate each other, or they might conflict with each other depending on how it's sort of evolved throughout, right? And this is where
Mhm.
context management, I think, becomes really critical, is not just when you hit that limit and start smooshing everything, but the more context that the model has to deal with, the more it's a bit of a needle in a haystack. And clarifying your intent when everything's sort of A1, super important, don't forget this, how it prioritizes which of that information is the correct information. Uh, Walk us through if you have any perspective on, like, it's not going to inherently know this is older, right? That's still a bit of the human oversight. Even if you put the date or the phase one in here, it might not automatically prioritize that context over other contexts, correct?
Yeah, you have to do some bookkeeping here manually. So basically, after each build, what I do is I just go back and I remove what's not needed. I summarize some of these files so there's enough context then left in Claude.md so that the model later knows what to do or how we've implemented things or certain architectural decisions we've taken. And so what happens over time is that your Claude.md starts getting bigger and bigger, and you start also pointing to some files, like let's say there's just overall architectural guidance we want. So you'll probably have a separate file, and Claude.md just points to it, and then it loads it as needed. But yes, you end up spending a lot of time just figuring out how to correctly limit the context that you need for your application going forward. And I'm pretty sure that in the next, 3 to 6 months, we'll see a lot more tooling come in from major labs and just dealing with this. Because right now it's, again, mostly manual, or you just use Claude to try to figure out what's there and make sure that you find all the relevant information that's needed. Because sometimes there's just like this little critical paragraph, like everything needs to do X. And then if you forget that paragraph, well, then you have to go and potentially rebuild something once it doesn't do X at the right time.
Absolutely. You mentioned some of the evolutions that uh, we expect to see in the next few months from some of the labs here. What are your thoughts on skills.mds and dynamically loading some of the intents uh, through a skills.md file versus the claude.md?
Yeah, that's the skills have been a great improvement overall for how these models work, because Claude.md in general just gives you an overview of what this project is about, while skills give your model ability to do certain things. So, for example, how do you work with your bug tracker like Jira, or how do you work with your with Git, or how do you work with some of the other services, let's say in your company that already exist, or how do you work with some external applications that you need to connect to? Like, for example, if we were to store this in a database, how do you work with that database? So skills give your model knowledge of how to do those things. And the nice thing is that you can attach many skills to a specific project, or ask the model to launch, to load many skills. And then magically it knows how to do many things.
The
So
nice thing there, though, is it's not bloating out your context, right? As opposed to if you're putting it straight into claude.md, it's going to read all of that, or it's using up all of that as token consumption and eating into your context window. Skills actually has a summary of what the skill is, and then if it's relevant, reads down into it, right?
yeah, so this progressive disclosure model, where you basically have this tree of MD files, where the skill.md is at the very top, and then it points to more files, and those files might point to other files. And you can also bundle some deterministic scripts alongside with your script, or sorry, with your skill, so that, for example, if we need to go call some Jira API as part of whatever the skill is, let's say project management skill, it knows how to do this correctly, and it doesn't have to like figure out suddenly, oh, how do I talk to Jira? Oh, it already has a script for talking to Jira, or maybe it uses an MCP server, but it knows where to go to get to Jira basically, and that simplifies, building these applications tremendously, because suddenly your model knows how to do something, and it does it well, and it does it consistently, and then it really becomes a real helper rather than something that just either works or doesn't work, and you can't really rely on it. When suddenly it just works all the time, or like 90+% of the times, then it's a real unlock that speeds you up tremendously.
Absolutely. Hopefully, we're about to see that same unlock here. Now, I want to take it back into the console for a minute with Val. Val, you had mentioned all tests pass with that confident little haiku model, and then getting some weird buggy stuff on the back end. How, it, firstly, within the plan, did you manually assign some tests for test-driven development? Were we relying on the plan generated by Claude for that? And how are we tracking now? How are we validating what's being written here?
So I do like it'll always I specified like in this outline here I specified that there is a like testing section,
Hmm.
and it's going to do unit tests and integration tests. So I'm going to
Hmm.
now read through that and say, oh, do I agree with these tests? Is there more tests?
Hmm.
You know, we can joke about the testing cheat, the test gaming that you encounter sometimes.
Hmm.
So sometimes if something's not working, it'll be like, I'm gonna just make up some mock data that I know that will work, and then this test passed and we are done.
Yeah.
Um So yeah, like in the end of the day, it will achieve all those tests and it will like do whatever it needs to pass those tests, which is sometimes not what you want. I'll go ahead and I'll show this other one that had the crazy multi-phase. So with this iteration, I did the same brainstorming. I kind of said I wanted it to look like cool and hackery, like retro, computery, and I was like, and have wit and sense of humor like GladOS from Portal. And it like really leaned into it. It's like, we're gonna make Portal. No, we're not making Portal. So I had to like kind of back it down from that. And then when I went to make the implementation phase here, it was like, okay, I'm gonna write these 8 files.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt to me like most of the code was actually like in these files. So
Mm-hmm.
what are you doing? You're not really making an implementation plan here. It felt like you're kind of like deciding the implementation for each of these phases, and then we're just going to rely on the agent team to kind of like put it all together and do the testing at the end. And this one turned out wild. I'm going to see if this is
Mm-hmm.
running on localhost. Yeah, so this is what, like, I mean, honestly, the animations here, the look and feel, like, this is pretty
Mm-hmm.
cool. Like, it's pretty
Yeah.
amazing to not have to code the interface like of this. So it wants my Venmo here, and it actually built the mechanism to save the Venmo. And this one talks. So
That's nice.
I was like,
So
oh,
this
it's
is.
talking to me. This is the interface. I'm like, what is happening here? What is this? Right? This is where I just let all the vibes take over. I was like, yeah, I want this crazy app. It's still going to be this expense tracker, but it made this wild take on it, where it does still have the audio button, right? It's using the web
Mm-hmm.
speech API. And then I actually can't like type in. It asks me for a name, like I can hear the audio, like it says, "Please enter a name," and
Mm-hmm.
I entered a name and it doesn't really recognize the name. It wants me to enter like Sally, like owes me, $10 for pizza.
I think I can hear it faintly.
Can you hear it?
Mm-hmm.
So like, this is wild, but this is not really a usable interface, right? So it took
Mm-hmm.
my like very, very loose specification, and it did, meet these things I put, or I didn't edit out, or I left in the specification. It it built what I asked for, and what I asked for just was not very correct, right? I didn't really do enough specification here to get an app that wasn't kind of it was like really overshooting on the whole like natural language interface here. Like, it wants this whole thing to be like a chat. Like, I can keep asking a question, and there is no LLM hooked up to this. So it wrote this whole like language parsing system. Who owes me money?
And so just to clarify, Val, this is the zero shot comparison that we ran, where you had loose specification as opposed to the in-depth
Yes.
one that we created
This was
initially.
very
Yeah.
loose, and I was just like, I'm gonna say wild things about the look and feel.
Yeah. So maybe to either of you, uh, as we get to the bottom of the hour here, talk to me again about why, applying those sound software engineering principles, having solid architecture, test-driven development, building that implementation plan up front is going to help you avoid this, where it leans in heavily onto maybe the flair and forgets the foundation, or it hasn't clearly understood your intent and interpreted it in sort of an interesting and weird way.
Yeah, so I mean, there's so many ways to do this, and the plan really allows you to kind of guide the model
Hmm.
across all those hundreds of possibilities. And Val showed like a couple of them, and as you can see, they're wildly different. And the implementation can also be wildly different. So with your plan, you're trying to at least restrict the set of possible solutions that the model will generate for us into those solutions that you really, really want. And without that, it can go wild and crazy and build, very interesting things that might look awesome, but not necessarily what you want. And the same
Absolutely.
thing applies to underlying architecture as well. So not only to the look and feel, but also same thing happens with the architecture. If you do know what architecture you want and you do know how to structure your code and your tests, then it's better to lay it out in a plan and work with Opus on figuring out what that plan should be. And it can also help you both by asking questions to narrow down where you want to go or figure out some specific details that it doesn't understand. So it helps a lot to get it to write the plan, ask you questions, refine the plan, and then fully solidify what it's going to do before it actually starts doing it, because the result will be fairly unpredictable otherwise.
Absolutely. And as we look at those unpredictable results, I'm sure as someone who's doing more and more code review now, you're probably playing the human or bot game more than ever for your PRs. Are there any tells that you can share with us? And how do you spot AI generated code just by glancing at it or problematic code, for example?
Well, right now it's harder to do this because so many people use AI, and I can almost assume that majority of the code is AI generated. But
Hmm.
early on, it was suddenly people started writing a lot of unit tests. Usually developers do that, but not to such extent where suddenly everything is covered by unit tests. And also there's this nice pull request descriptions that fully outline what's being done. And they're very nicely written. It's not something like fixed bugs. It's just this 2-page on why we fixed the bugs and how. So
Yeah.
it's definitely nice that this is happening. Uh, I'm not really sure if there is any specific signs you see from the code wise that it's done by LLM, but you can see by other things like unit tests and by just how
Hmm.
well people started to write suddenly.
Do
Uh,
those things make you pause and take another look? Like when you see really nice documentation, are you leaning in closer? Uh,
yeah, a lot of times because, well, sometimes I'm reading it closer. Sometimes I'm just like, well, this is 20 pages instead
mhm.
of, half a page. So I don't even try to read it. Then I just ask, let's generate something smaller that we can actually understand. Because
Hmm.
it's also, with all this power, it's very easy to start generating, hundreds and hundreds of pages of documentation that nobody will ever read.
Absolutely. And so, Val, as we're coming down to the bottom of the hour here, when the
We
AI is
are we
kind of
are real close. We got these 4 tasks left, and that's it. I don't know if we're gonna make it with 2 minutes. It might be real close. But what we can do is I'll post a video of what the app turned out like. I'll just immediately run npm run dev when it's done, and take a video of what it is, whatever is broken and whatever is working. Um, and yeah, we can share on LinkedIn how it turned out.
excellent. It'll be great to compare that to our other one that we zero shotted that you showed us just a moment ago that had its own LMP solution there. So the AI seems to assume the happy path, but with AI powered software engineering, we're building in contingencies for some of those unhappy paths, right? Um, and so we just attempted to build a full stack React in 40 minutes. I think we may have exceeded our 40 minutes. We'll maybe be converged here at closer to 50 or an hour, which, as Val mentioned, we'll share afterwards. Before we take off, I do want to just quickly close out that we saw the difference between vibe coding and agentic engineering and the benefits of building with a strong plan in place and software engineering. So, if you want to learn how to do the second one, how to architect agents, manage tokens, and deploy responsibly, that's exactly what you're going to learn in AI-powered software engineering nano degree that we launched last month. We cover test-driven development, design patterns, and the exact workflows that you saw today. Don't forget the code VIBE50 for 50% off your subscription. Val and Sergey, uh, you've been a pleasure to meet with today. Thank you so much for your time, and For those watching, don't just watch us build. Now go build it yourself. We'll also share out the uh, plan doc that Val had at the top, and maybe go track some petty expenses. I hope I don't owe you for coffee.
So we finished the webinar right around here, and we can see it fixing itself, running a bunch of tests, ran the tests again, it updated its to-dos, now it's doing the final testing, and phase 8 was complete, so it's doing a final verification, it's doing builds, it's saying 321 tests pass, and it committed all of this to Git. And then we got the build complete message. So it says how many tests and what phase and what models were used for each phase. The Git log that it ran the commits on and the comments it made. And then it wants me to run npm run dev to do it locally. It took about 10 to 15 more minutes after the webinar ended. So end to end, it was about almost a full hour build. And let's run the npm run dev to see what we got. Okay, we're on this URL. This looks pretty cool. So we wanted it to be a mobile web app, so let's maybe squish it so it looks more like a phone screen, and let's say Sally, it wants me to put in an email. It wants me to put in, let's go back there. Okay. And then apparently this is a little redundant. Okay. Let's log this grievance. It opens a mail to. Interesting. Let's bring it back. Let's see if we have some debts. We have some local storage, persistent storage. We have these little animations up here. Let's check out this shame thing. Wow, this is a lot. Okay, let's check out the settings. Okay, this is a lot. So it did all of this reminders and notifications. And we have this setting for snark level. That's a lot. Okay, cool. So let's add one more person. We can try and use this voice thing. Apparently we don't have permissions, or we get an error with that. Jake, and then we'll put in $5 for a taco, and we'll log this grievance. We got some nice animations. This continues to animate. Let's go look at the debts. Jake was added here. I think this will go to SMS again. We have some editing and paid controls. Mark is paid. We have some tooltips. We have this shame that Jake got added to. So we could, I guess, change this snark level. Let's change it to unhinged. We can export data and clear all data. I'm not sure if that would actually work. Let's see.
let's add another person. All right, let's check out the debts. We have a nice scroll here. The shame. Yeah, I can't tell if it's unhinged or not. Maybe this is about the message it sends. But yeah, this is a lot more functionality than the other two that were built. So it looks like the specifications here yielded way more robust outcomes. So we'll share those specifications that got this outcome.